Stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, and you're staring at time itself. Layer upon layer of rock stretches before you, each band a page in Earth's diary, written in stone. Some layers tell of ancient oceans, others whisper of deserts that stretched across continents. But then, something impossible. An entire section is missing. Not just a decade, not a century, not even 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000,000 years of history, gone, vanished without a trace. This rift in the Earth's memory has a name, the Great Unconformity, a wound in the planet's surface where time itself was stripped away. Scientists have stared at this gap for centuries. They've asked, what happened here? Where did 1,000,000,000 years of Earth's story go? Some think it was the work of unimaginable ice glaciers grinding entire mountains into dust. Others imagine titanic forces lifting, folding, and swallowing continents whole. But whatever the truth, one thing is certain. This mystery isn't just about rocks. It's about survival. Because while Earth was rewriting itself, life was being tested like never before. And out of that silence, when the missing 1,000,000,000 years finally ended, came an explosion of life so sudden, so powerful, it changed everything. The story of the Great Unconformity begins not with satellites or supercomputers, but with curious eyes and simple questions. Imagine a geologist, hammer in hand, standing at the base of the Grand Canyon. Before him, the walls rise in layers of color, reds, oranges, browns, each a different chapter of Earth's past. At first glance, it looks like a perfect stack, each layer resting neatly on the one below. But then, confusion. The rocks don't match. On top, you have sandstone deposited by ancient rivers only 500,000,000 years old. But beneath it, a foundation of much older granite, forged deep underground nearly 1.7 billion years ago. That means more than 1,000,000,000 years of time is missing between those layers. 1,000,000,000 years erased like a vanished paragraph. And it wasn't just here. Scientists began to notice the same strange gap all over the world. In the Rocky Mountains, in the Alps, even beneath the rolling plains of North America. Everywhere they looked, the same story repeated. Younger rocks lying directly atop stones far, far older, with nothing in between. It was as if Earth had been keeping a diary, carefully writing each chapter in stone. And then suddenly, someone tore out 1,000 pages and tossed them to the wind. This was more than unusual. It was impossible. Because in those missing chapters should have been mountains rising and falling, seas flooding and retreating, entire landscapes appearing and disappearing. Instead, we found silence. The Great Unconformity became one of geology's most haunting riddles, a gap so vast it stretches beyond imagination. To put it in perspective, if you removed 1,000,000,000 years from human history, we wouldn't just erase Rome or the pyramids or the first humans. We'd erase the dinosaurs. We'd erase the first land plants. We'd erase almost everything we know. So the question is, what force of nature could possibly wipe clean nearly a quarter of Earth's history? To understand the missing 1,000,000,000 years, we need to imagine Earth not as the calm blue planet we know today, but as a restless, violent world, a planet under siege. Start with ice. Not the thin sheets that cover Greenland or Antarctica today, but glaciers the size of continents. Between 700 and 600 million years ago, Earth may have plunged into what scientists call Snowball Earth. Imagine glaciers stretching from pole to pole, oceans sealed under miles of ice, continents buried beneath frozen walls thousands of feet thick. Those glaciers were not still. They moved, they scraped, they clawed across the land like blades, grinding down entire mountain ranges, erasing landscapes that had taken hundreds of millions of years to form. If Snowball Earth was real, and evidence suggests it was, then perhaps those glaciers carved away vast portions of the missing rock, dumping it into the oceans as dust and sand. It's chilling to think. The missing billion years could have been wiped out by ice itself. But glaciers weren't the only suspects. Earth was also being torn apart and stitched back together again by the movements of its continents. Supercontinents like Rodinia rose and fell during the missing billion years. Imagine all the land on Earth fused into one colossal mass, mountains thrust skyward, volcanoes blazing at the seams. Then, over hundreds of millions of years, that supercontinent cracked apart, fragmenting into pieces that drifted across the globe. When continents collide, they build mountains. When they split, they create oceans. Both processes destroy rock records. Mountains rise only to be worn down to nothing by wind and rain. Oceans flood only to vanish, dragging sediments back into the deep earth. In the process, entire chapters of Earth's story can be erased. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe the Great Unconformity isn't the result of a single cataclysm, but a series of relentless assaults, glaciers grinding from above, tectonic forces tearing from below, erosion stripping the surface bare, until billions of years of history were swept clean. Think of it, a planet rewriting itself, a diary with its ink washed away. But the story doesn't end in silence. Because when the pages of Earth's diary begin again, the world looks utterly different, and life itself is about to explode. After nearly 1 billion years of silence, the Earth's diary begins again. And the very first words are electric. Around 540 million years ago, life didn't just recover, it erupted. This moment is known as the Cambrian Explosion. In a geological instant, a few tens of millions of years, the world went from simple microbes to an explosion of strange, alien creatures. The seas filled with bodies unlike anything seen before. Trilobites with armored shells scuttled along the ocean floor. Worm-like creatures tunneled through the mud, leaving trails that survive as fossils today. Predators with spiny claws and wide, circular mouths patrolled the waters, monsters out of a science fiction nightmare. And for the first time, eyes evolved, creatures gazed into the world with vision, forever changing the arms race of survival. It was as if life had been waiting, held back for ages, and now finally the floodgates opened. But why here? Why then? Some scientists believe the destruction of the Great Unconformity may have helped trigger it. Glaciers grinding across continents dumped vast amounts of nutrients into the seas, phosphorus, calcium, and other minerals. When the ice melted and oceans surged back, they were rich with the chemical fuel for life. It was like pouring fertilizer into the primordial sea. Others argue that the endless upheaval of supercontinents created new coastlines and shallow seas, perfect nurseries for life to experiment. Whatever the cause, the result was unmistakable, the most dramatic leap forward in the history of biology. And here's the astonishing part. Without that missing billion years, without the glaciers that scraped the earth raw, without the mountains that rose and fell, without the destruction that seemed to erase history, the explosion of life might never have happened. In other words, the Great Unconformity may not just be a mystery of geology. It may be the very reason you and I are here. Today, The mystery of the Great Unconformity is still unsolved. But scientists continue to chip away at it, one rock at a time. They study crystals called zircons, tiny, unbreakable time capsules that record the age of the Earth like microscopic clocks. They measure isotopes in ancient minerals to track when glaciers advanced, when mountains rose, when oceans flooded. Piece by piece, they are reconstructing 1 billion years of history that nature tried to erase. And slowly, the silence is giving up its secrets. The story emerging is not one of a single disaster, but of relentless struggle. Glaciers advancing, continents colliding, oceans vanishing, a planet in turmoil. Yet somehow, out of this chaos, life found a way not just to survive, but to transform. Think about that. The missing 1 billion years were not empty. They were the crucible that forged the world we know. Without the glaciers grinding rock to dust, without the continents tearing themselves apart, without the destruction that seemed so absolute the seas might never have become fertile, the Cambrian Explosion might never have happened. And without it, there might never have been us. So the Great Unconformity is more than a scar on Earth's surface. It's a reminder that even in loss, there can be creation. That even when pages are torn from the book, the story still goes on. And sometimes, the silence hides not an ending, but a beginning. The next time you stand before the Grand Canyon, or any ancient wall of stone, remember this. You are looking not just at rock, but at memory, at the world's oldest diary, written in layers and fractures, in chapters both missing and preserved. 1 billion years may be gone, but its legacy is alive in the air we breathe, in the oceans that cradle life, and in the fact that we, fragile and improbable, are here to wonder about it at all.